173. We talk about decentralization and bank annihilation. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Litecoin, your coin, blockchain, baby. Mondays at 1600 hours Eastern, Studio A.
Hi, welcome tonight
Understanding
to Sunday
must
Night
arise
Live.
during these times
Oh God,
of
they haven't shut up
unparalleled
yet.
deceit. A view into the depths of society upon which this country has fallen. A storm brews upon the horizon. It's been said that those that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear will play a paramount role in the furthering of humanity and civilized society. But can civilized society and humanity survive the coming conflicts not seen since a dawn of time in ages bypast?
Hi there, I think we are now ready. And thank you.
Has it finally stopped? It's
Yes.
so strange. Gosh, is it on the out? That's so weird that it just cut out like that, isn't it?
It is.
I'm sure they'll tell us if we've gone off air. I'm sure they're fine. Welcome to Sunday Night Live, and Seraphina Angelus, my co-host, and we've got a guest tonight, and that's JS Garrett. Hi, JS. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, girl?
Good. So I just got your text about talking about baneful magic and protecting yourself against it and things that other people haven't heard yet. I don't know. Do you think, Seraphina, he should start talking about that?
Yeah, I think that would be great. I mean, it would be good to hear a bit about baneful magic and maybe you could incorporate some about protection from baneful magic coming your way from other black magicians and other sorcerers.
Yeah, definitely. You know, that's one of the number one questions that I get asked all day, every day. I get asked a lot of questions about love magic and a lot of questions about wealth magic and then baneful magic, either how to perform it or how to protect yourself from it. I'll say there's very few people out there that are capable of afflicting you with a baneful working successfully, but when you work in this field, we probably see that more often than anybody else. So it is a very real thing. And that was really the number one thing that I had to deal with whenever I first came out of the temple and started talking about this stuff publicly. Pretty much, as soon as you start talking about magic, people are going to start using it against you, if for no other reason than to just see if they can, to see whether or not you're legit, or usually it's out of jealousy, things like that. So there's a number of different ways that you can protect yourself from it. Whether you're a magician or not, you can use radionics to protect yourself from it, and there's various reversal rituals that you can perform to actually hurl a curse back at the sender. And there's a way that you can program your shadow self to absorb and feed off of that energy. And, that's probably the most effective, because then whenever someone is trying to harm you, they're actually just feeding you and making you stronger. And that's my preferred method. And the other best method, the best defense against a tank is another tank. And so there's a type of jinn that you can convince to voluntarily bind itself to you. They call it a witch killer, which, this particular jinn is bound to the practitioner for the purpose of protecting them. And whenever someone casts against them, it automatically hones in on that person, and that person that is casting against you becomes their sacrifice. And they don't typically kill them quickly. They typically kill them very slowly. They like to play with their food before they eat it. So I think that's very fitting as well. Me personally, I employ all of these different methods and techniques, which is why I'm still alive.
How do you get your shadow to feed? How is that actually done?
Okay, so you in the occult field, especially with Facebook sorcerers, you see them talking about shadow work constantly. Just, nonstop talking about shadow work. And like I think that most people they use the term shadow work as reference to inner work, working with your higher self or whatever, working through your issues. But when I use the term shadow work, I mean literally and directly working with your physical shadow. All right, so there's a way that you can program your shadow to do whatever it is you want it to do for you. All right, whatever, with your shadow follows you everywhere, and whatever you do, your shadow mimics. All right, and so therefore, if you worship your shadow, then your shadow will worship you. And so what you're essentially doing is creating, what we call an egregor. You are programming and giving life to your shadow that follows you everywhere, to where it becomes a conscious entity apart from you. All right. And so you can actually sacrifice to your shadow. You can program your shadow. You can do just about anything with this technique. And that's done using a black mirror. Okay. So you'll start out, the way I started out is I created this black mirror, and I mixed my blood in with the paint, and I painted the sigil of Belial on the black mirror. And so what I started doing was sitting in front of my altar, turning off all the lights, sitting in front of this mirror, and behind me, I would light a single candle. I'd put it on like a stool behind me so that it would illuminate my dark silhouette in this mirror. So that's like coming face to face with your shadow. And you start out by, you go into this meditative state where you're staring into this mirror while you're sitting in front of it. And you go back to your very earliest memory from childhood. You bring those memories to the front of your mind and then project them mentally towards that mirror, towards your shadow self, and like a picture show almost. And what you're doing is you're programming your shadow with your identity. You specifically think about all the things that have shaped you throughout your life, that have made you who you are, that have shaped your personality and your psyche, and you're feeding them into that shadow self, that reflection of you in that black mirror. All right, and so after you have done that successfully, then you start to program that shadow with the person that you want to become. So you start bringing to mind images of what you want to look like, what you want to see when you look in the mirror. You visualize yourself as a strong, powerful individual, this strong, attractive individual. You bring those images to your mind and then project them into that mirror. So now you're giving that shadow the identity that you want it to have. All right, once you've done this, then you can start programming your shadow to do specific things, like feed off of baneful energy. You want to essentially transform that into the most destructive force in the entire universe, which is a black hole that absorbs everything that it comes into contact with.
That's
and
amazing.
Feeds it back to you. I'm sorry, what?
That's amazing. I've never heard something like this. It's awesome.
Yeah, nobody's ever done it other than myself that I know of. This is something that took me years to figure out. Just now I've mentioned it on like one other podcast years ago, but that podcast is no longer on YouTube. So I thought it'd be great to talk about it again. And yeah, you can program it to do specifically anything you want. So you're basically turning your shadow, your physical shadow, into a conscious entity, an egregor that you've created for you by you to do specifically whatever you want it to do.
It's amazing. Have you got any questions, Serafina, about the shadow?
Yeah, absolutely. Is this something, Jess, that you can teach other people to do, or that you can do as a kind of ritual for hire on their behalf? Like, I know that obviously occultists can offer, or we can facilitate creating a pact for somebody else with any sort of entity. But is it possible, do you think, to do some sort of a ritual for hire to try to kind of initiate this process for them?
I'm going to say no to that one. This is something that I can teach people how to do very easily, but it's not something I can do for you because it involves interacting directly with your physical shadow. So the person would have, if they were there in person, then absolutely I could walk them through the process. But it's something you have to do yourself, and it's something that takes a great amount of time. It takes time and energy and patience. And it's not, like a lot of my rituals are like super exciting to watch. You've got the fire, the pyrotechnics going on. You've got the blood sacrifice. This would be a very boring course because it would essentially be hours and days of me sitting in front of a black mirror talking you through the visualizations and performing the exercises. And, it gets a little bit more exciting after you get into the programming of the shadow, breathing life into your shadow and giving it an identity of your choosing. Then you can start sacrificing to your shadow. All right. So let's say I want to imprint a sigil of an entity that will help you develop psychic abilities, like say Mepsital. All right. The way that I would do this is I would sit in front of the mirror. I would speak the name of my shadow because you're actually going to give it a name as well. So it is a separate consciousness apart from you. So once you get into that trance-like state, then you're going to take the sigil of that entity and you're going to perform an evocation. You're going to literally evoke that entity, charge that sigil, and trace over it with your blood, and then light it on fire. And then as it is almost burned out, you blow the ashes into the mirror physically. All right, and so this makes quite a mess, but it's a way of giving sacrificial offerings to your shadow self. And each time you do that, like this thing becomes more powerful. And you might, if you do this to a certain extent, where you deify your shadow to a point where it is a separate entity other than you, then you can literally stand in front of a light and your shadow will move on the wall whenever you're not moving. And that's like the holy crap moment. Like whenever you literally see your shadow move without you, that's when you know for a fact that you have done something real here and there will be no more question in the person's mind. And after programming that entity to feed off baneful energy, then whenever someone sits down and throws a nasty curse at you or something like that, you're just going to feel this influx of energy coming in. It actually feels euphoric. Like for me, my heart will start racing and I just feel amped up. Like, I just, slammed a gallon of Red Bull or something like that. You feel like invincible. And that's your shadow absorbing that baneful energy and transmuting it into a raw energetic source that you can feed off of. And so once you do that, then, your enemies are just doing you a favor every time they curse you. You're like, yeah, thanks. Feed me again, please. And that's the most effective method.
Do you think that the shadow is actually the etheric self?
That's a good question. I'm going to say no. No, I don't think that it is. I think that the shadow is a physical representation of what you see whenever you stand in the light. That's the darkness that you cast over the light spectrum. And until you do these exercises, it's nothing but a visual thing. But by feeding energy into this physical shadow, giving it an identity, and then feeding power and energy into it the same way you would create a spirit, the same way you would create an egregor out of nothing, then once you do that, like I said, I think it's a separate consciousness from you. It's a consciousness that you've created to serve you, essentially, and to become that which you want to become.
And how often would you say you should sit in front of the black mirror and program it? Every day?
Whenever you first start. Okay, so the first time you do this, you're not going to be in any shape to do it the following day. The very first time I did this exercise, it lasted approximately 3 hours. And when I stood up, like I could barely walk. Like I was very disoriented. I stumbled into the bedroom, laid down on the bed with my pants and shoes on, and woke up like 8 hours later. all right, and I was pretty out of it when I woke up the next day. That was the very first time I did this exercise. So I waited a few days and I did it again, and I did it again, and then I did it again. I started doing repetition every single day after that. And so I'm going to say whenever you're first doing the initial program, you're going to want to give yourself at least a 24-hour break after the initial rite that you perform, and then after that, you're going to want to do it every single day for about 2 weeks. All right. At the end of the 2-week period, you have completed this process if you have done it diligently. Then I would say once a week to once a month, you want to reinforce this, and that's to continue to feed this entity and make it stronger and stronger. But you also want to program it to feed itself, so that it's constantly becoming stronger as you go. So this is a way that you can actually help people around you by programming this shadow to feed off of negative energy and transmute it into positive energy. At that point, every time you come in contact with a negative individual, your shadow is going to consume that negativity and it's going to feed you and therefore purify those people that you come in contact with. And they will feel revitalized and free of that negative energy after they interact with you. So it's beneficial to those around you as well.
Here's a controversial question about egregores and about this shadow self as well. Do you think there's ever a point where it can develop its own consciousness to the point of having independent thought and actually potentially, which will sound like a kind of one of these sci-fi horror movies or something, or like AI gone wrong, but do you think it could, an egregor could turn against the host or the person who created it, or want some sort of freedom from that individual?
I'm going to say that's possible, but I've never experienced it. I've never had that happen. I would say it would come down to how careless the practitioner is when they create the egregor. I mean, you want to program this to be beneficial to you no matter what. All right. But that can also seem to backfire in the event that you become self-destructive. If you become your own enemy through foolishness, stupidity, or addiction or something like that, then yeah, I wouldn't put it past this egregor to smack you over the head and try to talk some sense into you. So that could happen, absolutely.
What, the black paint, is that any old black paint?
No, I used so I used a black mirror, which I actually took a really nice old mirror. I took the glass out and I had to sand off the reflective coating on the back of it. I just used a regular DA sander in my workshop, and then I spray painted it black. I had to go over it about 3 or 4 times to get it nice and solid. And then I took red paint and I mixed my blood into the paint. This was actually an exercise that me and my good friend Curtis Joseph did together. He was actually at my house when I made this mirror, and he mixed some of his blood into that paint too. And we both painted the sigil on the mirror. And I'm quite certain that every time I fire up this magical tool, he can feel that.
And tell us about your working with Belial JS, because that's something that you did alongside Curtis Joseph, wasn't it? It was there was some sort of ritual that was on Become a Living God.
Well, okay, so my initial path working with Belial, I did that myself long before I met Curtis. However, we were both working with Belial quite a bit whenever we did meet physically. And so we got together and we spent about 2 weeks filming a video course, a path working course with Belial that takes someone from beginner level, entry level into doing the path working all the way to the final path working, the final pact. No one's ever seen this. I'm not sure why Curtis never decided to drop that course, but it was quite an interesting path working that he and I did together. A lot of phenomenal things happened during that can't really be explained. So that was something that we collaborated on and attempted to do together. I'm not sure why that course never saw the light of day, but it was a lot of fun doing it for sure.
Isn't Curtis working with the Naga?
I don't know. He and I haven't really kept up with each other's path workings recently. So yeah, he might be. I'm not sure.
I think it was Dragon. I think Dragon Magic, which I think is the Naga. As you were saying, the djinn. Now, is it specific djinn, or can you get your own djinn to protect you in that same way?
Okay, so all right, so the ritual I did is actually with the ring I have on my finger here. I actually hired a gin master in Ghana, Africa, to create this ring for me. All right, and so he had a gin voluntarily, very very evil, nasty gin from what he described it as, voluntarily bind itself to this ring for the purpose of working with me personally. And this is a jinn that specializes in protection as well as assassination, I guess you would call it, to where pretty much anyone that tries to attack you with anything legitimate, this thing picks up on that, hones in on the attacker, and not only returns that to the attacker, but latches onto them and feeds off of them and plays with them like a cat plays with a mouse before it finally kills it.
Interesting. It's strange, isn't it, that when you interact with entities, they don't seem to go away. They kind of stay around, don't they?
Yeah, you feed it once and now it stays, which I greatly appreciate because I want to make friends with them. And the way I see it, every single time I make successful contact with an entity, I've made a new ally. And that entity will forever be your ally unless you do something to intentionally disrespect them or intentionally attempt to cast them away from you. But my question is, why would you ever want to do that? You hear a lot of horror stories about people making pacts or agreements with spirits, and then they don't uphold their end of the bargain, and then that entity does whatever it sees fit to do to that person for breaking their word. So really, I'm just going to say that you absolutely need to be serious and you need to be certain of your intentions before you go jumping into an agreement with a demonic king or an angel or a jinn, anything like that. But, as long as you treat them with respect and you don't act with stupidity, then you can't go wrong.
And you guys work with Lucifer, both you guys. So, yeah, do you want to ask questions about Lucifer and how... I don't really understand who Lucifer is.
I'm not sure if anybody fully understands who Lucifer is. Everybody has an idea from TV or from the Bible or from growing up in church. And, I don't think any of us fully grasp it. The only way to really get an understanding of Lucifer is through a lifetime of path working with Lucifer. And, it's like I learn something every week. I'm constantly learning new things.
And I think it's about building a personal relationship with Lucifer or with any other entity. I think that what it comes down to is, who is Lucifer to me? And that might be different to who Lucifer is to you, JS. But yeah. I think that we all certainly have a kind of common understanding of his essence and his character. And I think I can definitely tell when someone speaks of Lucifer and they're describing him in a certain way that just doesn't sit right. It is almost like if somebody were describing someone that you know really well and you thought, hang on, you're talking about someone completely different, or you don't know that person at all. Like, I've seen that a lot. I have seen, like, everyone's relationship with these entities is different, but they have the same essence. And so I can definitely recognize when somebody is misquoting Lucifer or talking about gnosis that is quite clearly coming from either, at best a trickster spirit or at worst their own delusions.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that claim to speak for Lucifer have never actually made contact with him successfully. The experiences I've had with Lucifer have been the most beautiful, enlightening experiences that I've ever had. And I can totally see why they describe him as the most beautiful angel in heaven, And, it's been so twisted and contorted over the centuries. You know, he went from somehow being the bringer of light, you know, which actually would represent the sun. You know, so Lucifer originally was considered to be a sun god, just like Apollo or Jesus Christ was considered to be a sun god. The enlightener, the bringer of knowledge and wisdom, and the one that can bring someone through enlightenment and understanding of themselves above anything else. You know, he's been painted into being this devil with a pitchfork by Christianity and television over the years, and there's been lots and lots and lots. I can name about 100 of them off the top of my head. People that have either written books about Lucifer or, you know, done podcasts, WordPresses, things like that about their personal experiences with him. Some of them, the things that they write do resonate with me, and I see similarities with it. And others, I'm just like, I don't know what this person's talking about. I don't criticize anybody. I might not agree with something that someone's saying, but I'm not going to like criticize them or declare that they're wrong or anything like that, because who am I to say one way or another?
I think that everyone in the occult has a different experience, and we all have a different path. We all have a different, you know, we all have different strengths and something different to contribute and to teach. So I think it's only possibly the most arrogant of people that would ever say that, you know, one way is right and one way is wrong, or that someone is right or wrong or better than another person. It's, you know, it is a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, that stems from ego and jealousy, which is the number one thing that you see amongst occultists: delusions of grandeur, thinking that they're the incarnation of some ancient god or deity in the flesh, and things like, I've heard that so many times, and it's almost like a type of psychosis that almost all of them seem to go through at some point. It's like they'll make contact with an entity, and then all of a sudden they get it in their head that they are that entity. And part of that might be because a lot of times, a lot of these entities, when you ask them who they are, you know, who are you? They'll respond with, I am you. It's like, okay, that could be taken in so many different ways. And I think people take that just a little bit too literally. And it's because they don't think the way we do. They don't encompass reality and creation and process information the way we do. They're coming from such a higher standard of intellect that we can't always fully understand what we're receiving from them. So we misinterpret that, and it turns into a delusion of grandeur, which every single time we see somebody claiming that they're Lucifer in the flesh, it's not long before they crash and burn. And that's because, I mean, saying that in itself is an insult to the being himself.
It is, yeah.
And so what happens when, like, I've tried to work with different spirits. I used your Sigil JS for Shemyaza, and I started doing meditations that seems like Shiva is appearing a lot, and I'm kind of sitting with Shiva. What happens next, I'm wondering? Because, I mean, are we just supposed to sit there and let the energy wash over them and maybe do some automatic writing and ask questions? I mean, what is on the menu, really?
Well, what's on the menu is whatever you want. It's like they'll give you this information and knowledge. Now you get to choose what you do with it. You know, you can choose to just sit there and bask in their light, knowledge, and energy and let that wash over you, and maybe, you know, do some automatic writing and channel, you know, information for the sake of your own knowledge and for the sake of other people. But, you know, the point is that they're giving you knowledge to do with as you please, and that's where our free will comes into play. So the real question is, what do you want to do with that knowledge? You know, if you convince Shemyaza to lend you his power, then anything that you do with that knowledge is honoring him. You know, so you look at your life and you say, okay, what's lacking in my life? What do I need in my life that I don't have? What can I use magic to obtain that I don't already have? And anything that you accomplish is for that entity that gave you that knowledge. And so it's completely up to you whether you do anything with it or not.
Isn't it a little bit like, I always thought that was a little bit like making friends with somebody and then looking at the new friend, like say the new friend's got a bit of money and power, and you start thinking, oh, how can I use them? Isn't that a little bit with entities thinking, oh, how can I use you? Rather than just offering them your friendship and company, you're thinking, oh, how can I make my life better with you? Isn't that a bit like using them? Isn't that a little bit offensive for them?
Okay, so I'm going to say no, other than unless that's how you're looking at it. All right, like I don't ever say that I use an entity for this or that. People ask me, oh, what spirit do I use for this spell? I'm like, well, you don't use them. All right, like I ask them for the knowledge of what I need to do, and then I honor them completely separately. I'll say, I need a ritual to do this, Shimyaza. Like, how can I accomplish this particular goal through ritual magic? And if he gives me the answer, then I will give him offerings and a sacrifice and reverence in exchange just for giving me that answer. All right. And then the other way that I can honor him is by taking the knowledge that he gave me and utilizing it to improve my own life. So I look at everything as a mutual beneficial relationship. I don't just summon these guys and ask for favors all day and offer nothing in return. And people that have that mentality, most of them don't make it out of their mom's basement, So you can really tell the difference in who is doing the work and using the knowledge correctly. You can measure that by looking at their personal life. Are they healthy? Are they wealthy? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled in the areas of romance? Like, what are all the things that us physical humans desire? Have we satisfied those desires? And are we doing anything other than satisfying our carnal desires? Are we doing anything to teach others or help others satisfy those desires? Because this is about experience. And a rising tide elevates the entire ship. So when I learn something new and cool that helps me in my life, I want to show other people how to use it to improve their lives as well. And that's done in the honor of the spirits, as far as I'm concerned.
But isn't that easier for someone like you that can go out to the woods and do the animal sacrifices? It's difficult for people that can't do that. They're left to putting out rum and stuff like that. It seems a little bit.
No, I'm gonna say that saying, okay, so if you live in a suburban neighborhood, you're probably not going to get away with casting a large circle and chopping the head off a rooster in your backyard if your neighbors can see you. All right, but that's not the only way to do this. So saying, oh, I live in the city, I can't do what you can do, that's a cop-out, okay? You can absolutely do the exact same thing in your kitchen or your bathroom. You might not be able to sacrifice a rooster in your kitchen without repainting the walls, but you can absolutely lay out a circle in your kitchen floor and light a basin. I use Everclear. I don't like to use rubbing alcohol. That works really good too. I use Everclear. That's 95% alcohol. It burns clean and leaves no residue behind, and it produces smokeless fire. So it's not going to stain the walls. You can, instead of buying a large rooster, you can buy a small bird, like a quail or a dove or even a parakeet, whatever you can get your hands on, and offer that as a sacrifice. And you want to spill the blood directly into that open flame. Now, you're not going to incinerate the body inside your house, otherwise you're going to set off all your smoke detectors. So what you'll do in that case is you will clean the animal, cook the flesh, consume the flesh, taking the energy of that ritual into yourself, and then utilizing every feather and every bone in your magic from that point on. So therefore, you're honoring the animal, you're feeding the spirit life force energy through blood sacrifice, and you're going to get the exact same result that I can get by chopping the head off a goat in my backyard, if that's what I'm capable of doing. Because it's not necessarily about how much you can give. It's about, are you giving as much as you can?
And what about if you can't use an animal, like if you can't do an animal sacrifice, or you're just not inclined to do so, how about using one's own blood? Do you
Your
think
own
that's
blood,
as powerful?
Yeah, I'm going to say if that's all you're capable of giving, then absolutely. If that's all you can give is your own blood, then that's going to be just as powerful as a chicken or a goat. All right. Another thing, and I want to keep this PG-13, but another thing to consider is menstrual blood and sexual fluids. If you're a biological female and you produce menstrual blood, then that is like number one ideal offering. If you're a biological male and you can produce semen, then that is going to be your number one ideal offering if you are not able to sacrifice an actual animal. Your own blood, your own fluids, that's just as good.
How do we know that they're going to like someone's semen?
Well, I mean, the same way we know they're going to like someone's blood. It's power. It's pure life force energy. And semen, I think semen is going to be more powerful than menstrual blood, honestly, because each one of those individual little sperms is a life created by you that is separate from you. So think about how much life force energy is in that semen offering when there's millions of sperm cells, potential humans, swimming around in that offering. And you offer that into the fire. Like, that's some seriously powerful energy.
Mm. And I have heard a lot of stories about women using, I mean, obviously you can use menstrual blood in a lot of like love and lust rituals, and you can use it to dress a candle, for example, or in different types of ritual where you're trying to attract a specific lover. But I have heard of women actually using it to put in something that the other party consumes without that individual's knowledge, which is something that I have never done and will never do, would never do.
That's something that's been done to me. That's something that's been done to me. My former partner, I actually taught them that spell just for the sake of teaching them. And for about a year, once a month, they fed me their menstrual blood without my knowledge in order to try to dominate and control me and make me lust for them and only them. And, you know, it absolutely worked. And even once I found out, once they finally admitted to me that's what they were doing, I didn't care. Like to give you an idea of how well it worked, I was like, oh, I don't care. It's just made me love you that much more. You know, and, you know, I'm going to say that that's probably the most powerful, potent love spell you can do to a man as a biological woman is to spell their food and put your menstrual blood in their food and feed it to them. There's only two ways to break that. All right. You can either summon an entity that's powerful enough and willing to break that spell, or you can consume the menstrual blood of a new partner after that relationship has fallen apart.
So what would you put it in, like soup, or if it was a drink, what would you mix it in with so you wouldn't taste it?
All right, typically spaghetti sauce, chili, soup, anything liquid. You know, you're not going to taste it. You're not going to notice it. And they'll usually speak their intention, like they'll use what's called a moon cup to collect a good amount of menstrual blood. And then they will prepare the person's food, and they will speak their intention over that blood. I hereby consecrate this menstrual blood to drive this man crazy for me, or whatever they want to say, whatever they're programming it to do. And they will mix it up in their food and then feed it to that person, not knowing what they're eating. And I'm not going to say it turns them into a zombie, but like it completely infatuates that person with the blood, or with the person whose blood they've consumed. They will dream about them every night. They will think about them anytime they are aroused. They won't be able to think about anyone else anytime they are aroused. And they will never leave that person, no matter what that person does to deserve to be left for.
So the moon cup, what is that? Just a normal cup, or? Okay,
the moon cup is it's made of rubber, and it looks like a funnel, and it is inserted into the vagina, and it collects the menstrual blood as it's flowing out, and then you can. You take the moon cup out and pour it into a container or someone's food.
I guess it's down to the individual, like how they feel about that kind of stuff. You know, like personally, I wouldn't want to try to control someone that I love. So it definitely wouldn't be for me. But obviously, it's a powerful practice that probably a lot of black magicians do utilize.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say it has its benefits too, and I think it should be consensual. Let's say you've got a married couple that's been together for 12, 15 years, and they're looking for a way to keep that fire in their relationship. Then that is something that can be done consensually. You can consensually consume a woman's menstrual blood in order to enhance the sexual attraction in the relationship. But I'll say if you're doing it behind your partner's back without their knowledge, then that can be considered sinister. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So the kind of mutual and consensual love magic between partners, and that's something that can be really powerful as well. And what are your thoughts on like black magicians and having a partner who doesn't practice magic or doesn't believe in magic? I mean, it's something that I've spoken to. I've had quite a lot of conversations with EA about this, and said to him, how did you ever date somebody who wasn't an occultist? For me, it would feel really strange. And what are your thoughts about that?
I'm going to say if you're the occultist and they're not, it gives you one hell of an advantage, an upper hand in the relationship if you're going to be an asshole and manipulate them. However, if they think you're just playing Harry Potter in the temple and they don't have any respect for what you do, then that can cause a lot of tension. And I was in that exact same situation. When I first started, I've dabbled in experimenting with spell work and magic since I was 10 years old, but it wasn't until about 10, almost 11 years ago that I dove in head first and started really practicing hardcore sacrificial rites, path workings, undergoing possession voluntarily, totally living, eating, and breathing this practice. My partner at the time was a total skeptic. They ridiculed me. They were just you think some magic in the air is going to fix all of this? You're wasting your time doing that when you could be, I don't know, washing dishes or something. And it wasn't until I got fed up with that. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to prove it to you, And my partner at the time sustained an injury, a back injury. She leaned down to pick up something heavy and slipped a disc. A bone popped out a joint in her lower back. And she sat down on the bed and she couldn't get back up. So I come home from work and she's sitting there in tears because she's in so much pain, talking about, you're going to have to take me to the hospital. And I'm like, let me see what we're dealing with. So I turn her over, I lift up her shirt, and I almost came to tears because I saw it was so swollen and disfigured and discolored. I was like, oh my God. I knew what that meant. It meant surgery, it meant steroid injections, it meant getting addicted to painkillers and all this other stuff. And this voice said, now's your chance to prove it to her, And so I said, you know what, honey, I know you don't want to go to the hospital, so would you be willing to allow me to try something before I take you to the hospital? She's like, I'll try anything. So I carried her into my temple. I laid her in the magic circle. I put the sigil of Raphael on the ground in front of her and told her to stare at it while I was doing the ritual. I pinned the sigil of Raphael to the ceiling above her, and I placed the sigil underneath her waist, underneath the injury in the circle. And then I took a red eyeliner pen and I drew the sigil over the swollen inflicted area on her back. I proceeded to evoke Raphael through that sigil, and then I pricked my finger and anointed it with my blood. And then I was compelled to, once you do something like this, when Raphael comes in, he possesses not only the practitioner, but he possesses the recipient, as in he has to reach inside them and fix the problem. That's a level of possession. So I dropped to my knees and I held my hands over her back. And I felt the pressure, it was like this blanket of pressure came down from the ceiling on top of us. And her back popped so loud that we both heard it. And I literally felt the bone move underneath the skin. All right. And then it got really, really hot. It felt like I caught on fire. I don't know, invisible flames were engulfing me. And this lasted for about 15 seconds. And then we both heard a voice say, she'll be 10 times better tomorrow. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. And so once the ritual was over, she was able to stand up on her own. She was able to walk, and she was pain-free. All right. She went back to bed. She was very sore for about 3 days, so she felt like she had had surgery. And after the soreness went away, she was completely recovered and healed. And not only that, but she had fibromyalgia. She'd been diagnosed with that for 7 years. The fibromyalgia was gone, that pain from the fibromyalgia. So it healed that as well. After that, my partner became a 100% believer and started working this path, walking this path with me. So if you're doing real shit, then your partner at some point is going to have to admit that you're doing real shit. And they're either going to get on board or they're going to run from you, one or the other, because it's going to either scare them or fascinate them.
Was that Barbie that you had that experience with?
It was.
Oh, interesting. Does Shemyaza mind you working with Raphael? Aren't they in disagreement, or is that biblical nonsense?
I think that falls in the category of biblical nonsense. I have just as great a relationship with Raphael as I do with Azazel or Shemyaza. Like, I know people, traditional Satanists will argue with me all day long on that instance, but you know what? Like, if I want to move a freaking mountain, then I'm going to summon an angel and a demon into the same circle together and ask them both to work together towards moving that mountain for me. And I have never had anything other than success in working with angels and demons at the same time.
Wow. So Shemyaza and Raphael might appear together.
They might what?
You might have an instance where Raphael and Shemyaza would appear together.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Do you ever work with any other entities for healing, Jess, or is it generally Raphael?
It's generally Raphael. I have worked with Marbas as well. Marbas is described as a demon that can either inflict disease or cure disease, inflict physical ailments or cure them. And I've had personal success, like great personal success, working with Marbas, not working on someone else's behalf, but on someone working on my behalf with Marbas. After I went through my brutal separation this past year, I went into like this depressive slump, where like I was, it lasted like 2 or 3 months. Like I was just like getting drunk every day, just in the state of like pure agonizing pain, and I got on the phone. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name here. My good friend Joseph Nunn, he has his own YouTube channel and he's a professional practitioner as well. He called me up and he's like, "Brother, I've had you on my mind a lot. Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not okay. I'm actually trying to drink myself to death right now. Like, I'm suffering that bad." And he was like, "Brother, put the bottle down. I'm setting up the temple. I'm going into the circle now. I'm going to do a ritual with Marbas for you. Please don't drink, brother. Just let me do my thing. I'm going to heal you of this." And I swear, like the next day I woke up and I did not have the urge to drink whatsoever. Not only that, but I didn't have any alcohol withdrawals either. All right. Now I drink occasionally. I drink for pleasure. Like I had a shot of tequila a few minutes ago, like it's a once in a while thing. But I don't drink every day and I don't get drunk all the time. But, I think it's normal for whenever someone's dealing with something that bad, it's normal to self-medicate with alcohol. And it had become a problem. And my good friend Joseph Nunn and Marbas came to my rescue in that instance. And so I'll swear by both the entity and that practitioner. Like they're amazing to work with.
Interesting. And when you're speaking to angels, do you hear them inside your mind or outside or both?
Both. Typically, it's inside my mind. It's telepathic communication. But there's been so many instances where other people in the circle, either people that were assisting me in the ritual or the recipient of the ritual, have heard the exact same thing, audio voice. And like that's one of those things. It's just like, it's like, I don't know. It's like seeing a mermaid, it's so incredible. Like, oh my gosh, This is amazing, and it does happen. It absolutely does happen, and it's those instances when those things happen that, really show people that we're not just doing internal work here. Like some practitioners will say, oh, everything's in you. It's like, oh, okay, I get that concept. Everything, is in the eye of the beholder. We're creating our own reality, and everything that is represented out here in this universe has a representation inside of our mind, but it is also separate from us, and it is also very physical. All right, it's both.
Mm. Is that the mercury seals you've got on your arms?
On my arms? Okay, no, this is the 5th seal of Mars, and this is the 6th seal of Mars. All right. So there's what it says. Okay, so what it says in like the Goetia, these are Solomonic seals. Like it says that this inflicts pain on demons. All right, that's not the case. All right, demons are friends. This does not offend any demon that I've ever worked with. This inflicts pain on parasitic entities, the types of entities that Christians would call demons out of a lack of understanding for what a demon is. Okay, something evil, something nasty that attaches to you and feeds off you and harms you. This actually does inflict excruciating pain on them, and they won't come near you if you're bearing this seal. And it's come in very handy in doing exorcisms on people. I've done several exorcisms in person that were, I won't say it was like out of the movie The Exorcist, but it was pretty freaking scary. All right, and that definitely protected me. The 6th seal of Mars is a protection seal. This is something that you would want to wear into battle. All right, it says that the bearer of this seal cannot be harmed, and if they are attacked, then it will turn their enemies' weapons against them. I'll say from experience that's absolutely true. And that's only a fraction of what these seals actually do. And it's something that I've been learning more and more about ever since I got them tattooed on my body.
When did you get them done? It's like quite recent.
No, I've had them on for 7 years now.
Oh, okay. I think there's something really powerful about getting a seal or a sigil tattooed onto your body rather than just wearing a pendant. Do you think it is more powerful?
It's written in blood. It's written in your flesh. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do like one of these seals, like say the seal of Mars, one of the Mars seals, you want to have it tattooed on your body during the day and hour of Mars. Mm-hmm. All right, and that's just going. I'm not going to say it's not going to work if you don't do that, but traditionally, there are certain times of day and times, days of the week when it is easier to channel and connect to this energy than others. And, it even says in the Bible, like, happy is he who knows the holy days and numbers, It's because there are, if you're in tune with astrology and planetary alignments and things like that, then there are words, there are certain words or actions that you can speak or take during certain times to perform miracles. All right, and my favorite example of that is the birthday wish. Okay, like blow out the candles and make a wish on your birthday. That originated from something very real. Okay, and that's not as simple as making a wish on your birthday and blowing out the candles. No, but it is just as simple. You have to make a wish, a verbal wish, during the moment of your birth, on your birthday, during the very minute that you were born. So if you were born at 9 a.m., then at 9 a.m. on your birthday, in the same time zone that you were born in, you walk outside, you face the direction of where you were born, and whenever it hits 9 a.m., you have until 9:01 a.m. to speak a verbal wish, a single wish. I, JS Garrett, hereby wish to double my income this year. Thank you. All right? Like, it's that simple. You make a wish at the exact minute that you were born, and that will come to fruition by that time next year. And I've done this the last 7 years in a row. Each time I've gotten exactly what I've wished for, every single time.
That's powerful.
That's fantastic. I think we're coming. I think we're going to get the music soon. Serafina, do you want to tell everyone where they can get hold of JS and lead us out, because I think we're going to...
Sure, yes. So JS, you've got a site, Lawless Metaphysics. Is that the best place for people to
Yes,
you?
that is my website. That's mine and Rourke Douglas's website. It's www.lawlessmetaphysics.com. We also have a YouTube channel that is called Lawless Metaphysics as well. And yeah, there's a place where you can email us on the site. I prefer people don't contact me through my personal Facebook in relation to business, because Facebook is purely entertainment for me. I might share a video or something on there, but that's like a personal entertainment platform. When it comes down to business, hit me up through my website, and definitely check out our YouTube channel, because we've got nonstop content flowing in. We're trying to put out things that are useful to people who are willing to get their hands dirty.
Fantastic. And you offer rituals for hire through Become a Living God as well, don't you?
Yes. That's the other. Thank you for bringing that up. That's the other website that you can find me on, is becomealivinggod.com. That's actually where I got my start. That was the very first website that I offered rituals on, the first YouTube channel that I dropped a video on, and I stay quite booked up on that website to this day. Becomealivinggod.com. That is the platform that started all of this, ladies and gentlemen. And none of us would be where we are today if it wasn't for Timothy and EA Coetting putting out the content and teachings that they've done. You can say what you want about those guys. They've gotten a lot of flack in the media, but the fact is they are the driving force behind the modern occult movement, and I'm very proud to be affiliated with them.
Yeah, absolutely, as am I. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been incredible having you on the show. And
thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Zerafina, you're one of my best friends. I love chatting with you. Christine, I've gotten to know you fairly well over the last few months, and I'm happy to come on here with you guys anytime you want to chat. And I'd love to have either of you on my YouTube channel as well. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Come back soon. Are we getting the music? I don't know. It gets weird, the music tonight, isn't it? We're definitely on air because Patrick...
You want me to start singing? I can make some music.
I think we need to...
Oh, there we are.
We are. Right on cue.
There it is.
Thanks again, guys.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Listeners.
Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Still out there?
You going back in? There's still men out there. God damn. When I go home, people ask me, hey, Hoot, why do you do it, man? Why? You some kind of war junkie? I won't say a goddamn word. Why? They won't understand. They won't understand why we do it. They won't understand it's about the men next to you. And that's it. That's all it is.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, #1 listener-supported radio, the printing press for freedom at a time when freedom is needed the most.
I am Bill Johnson,
Some consider my efforts to be an underground law school. I am not an attorney, and I do not give legal advice. I teach. That's lawful and legal. Consider yourself served. You are to appear Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, Studio A. My forte? Foreclosure and contract law. Grab your legal pad and pen. Learn a broad spectrum of law spanning administrative, criminal, family,